Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off, as always, with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week, other than an incredibly loud bike horn on the end of a pistol there? Well, I am continuing to work on our vault, and I have some incredibly exciting things to show you folks today. We're going to jump right in. The first one is that I have quick belt loadout saving mostly working. It still kind of messes up a little bit with the backpacks. I'm still hunting down some bugs here, but we can click on in quick belt here in our scan mode, hit a new file, just put in here double sound check. Don't worry, the auto button is gonna have your back in the future when you don't want to type. Scan loadout, 2 of those, bam, save new, double sound check. So if we throw those away, make sure we have that selected still, spawn loadout, bam, look at that! All the double sound check that I can handle. And you'll notice that it has up here not just the objects that we're spawning into the loadout, but the specific quick belt prefab. And it encodes this by name so that it can support modded quick belt loadouts. Basically, as long as that loadout is active in your game, whatever was used to encode this file, it should be selected. If for some reason you encoded a bunch of things with quick belt loadout and then just removed it from your game, you will not be able to load those things. Just be aware. God, those are so loud. Jeez Louise. Let's get rid of those. The other, even more exciting thing that I would like to announce, and it's why there isn't an alpha today, because this is still in progress, but coming along great, is, what's that? What's that third button? Yup, scene config. That is right, we have the ability now to save the configuration of objects in our scene. I'm gonna go ahead and reload our scene first just to clean it up, like so. And you're like, wow, there's a bunch of loud stuff to the side there. Let's get ourselves a not bike horn affixed testing 1911, and in fact, let's make it quieter instead of louder. Do. Sure, I always go to this one. I just think it looks so neat. Wonderful. Because to go along with our ability to save our scene config, I have been going about, and let's get you out of here, working on a whole bunch of new targets for the game, as well as sort of remasters of some of the existing ones. You can see we have some of the steel plates here that are in the Friendly 45 scene. If you want to just grab those and place them, they can all be spawn duplicated now if you want to place those around. But let's take a look at some of our new targets. We've got some sort of spring-loaded steel pop targets here. Then I'm still playing around with the spring tension, but you get enough movement to know that you have definitely hit it. I have tweaked a bunch of things about the bullet hit decals as well. They're now actually based a little more on how powerful the round that's hitting them. We got some steel IPSCs. Wham, 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 wham. Like so. We got a spinner here. A little hard to hit with our suppressor in the way. Oh, that's just terrible. We're fine. We'll do it loud. Yes, I still missed the first time. Beautiful stuff. And we've got, I don't know if you've ever seen these before, but these are walk-in targets. These are actually made for 22 plinkins. So let's go ahead. Let's go grab a slightly more chill pistol so we don't send these flying quite as much. But these are super fun. Let's line up here and boop. Ha-ha. Doink. 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 Oh, those are so much fun. You are perfect. Oh, it took a while to tune the exact sort of physics settings to get those to walk how I want. Although if you end up shooting them with something like a slug, I think they do still go flying. Let's see. A little more of a flying target at that point. So I've also changed the dueling tree here so that its joints for its individual panels are a little more reliable. They settle into place better. They glitch out less, and of course we can. Whoa, oh man, that does not like that. With the physics joints, we'll have to. I think I'll probably have to like disable the mass or do something. That is wild. And it just keeps going wilder. Yeah. That's either a mass relationship stuff or like joint forces fighting each other. I'll have to figure out a solution to that. The rest of them don't say. This one doesn't. Yeah. This one has a physics joint on it, but doesn't go out of control. So, yep, that's got to just be a mass thing. But yeah, as you can see here, you can pick these up. You can place them however it is that you like. Boop. And then if we wanted, we could come over here and save this absolute mess of a configuration if we felt like it. New file, mess, scan scene. Okay, now it doesn't even want to behave. Of course. Of course! Alright, problem solved. This is what happens when I change code right before filming a devlog. So, let me actually do a demonstration here. So let's say that we've actually set ourselves up some sort of custom course. Brilliant. And we create a new file, walk-in mess. Walk-in mess. Like so. Scan scene. You can see we've got 41 objects here, including our walker targets. And then we can save that new. Boop. And we can go back and forth between, say, a original version of the scene that is set up like such, and our walk-in mess. And it's that simple. So yeah, and there's going to eventually be a tool so that you can even that you can sort of bind a configuration to the default for the scene, so that every time you hit reload scene, it will automatically load that file for you instead of whatever my default happens to be. But that's still stuff I need to figure out. Anywho, let's jump out of VR so that I can talk a little more in detail about how this system works and what it will save, what it won't save, how it's going to interface with modding, and now that this is working, the stuff that I plan to build and integrate into it over the coming months. Yo! So, we got a bunch of topics to cover, and I don't want to bore you, so we're going to just dive right in and sort of tear through these. So, first off, how does it work and sort of what is the system saving? So the scene saving is sort of built off of an extension of the core vault, except instead of searching in your quick belt to select items to save and load, or searching in the volume of the spawner to save things and saving them relative to the spawner, this searches the entire scene and does it relative to the scene origin. So in terms of what it saves, basically there's a series of checks that it is performing, because it's doing this global search and going, give me every physical object in the scene. And then it filters out the stuff that it shouldn't save, because saving it would break something about game logic, or it wouldn't be able to bring it back, or something along those lines. So it makes sure that it's not an object you're holding. It makes sure that unless you're saving a loadout, it's not in your quick belt. It makes sure that it's not an inactive hidden object. And most importantly, it makes sure that it is an object that has an item spawner ID. Because this is all running through the item spawner systems and the vault, essentially I'm enforcing a sort of like flat, consistent behavior of, if it's a thing that the item spawner can spawn you, it's a thing that can be saved. And if it's not something the item spawner can spawn for you, it does not get saved, and more importantly, it does not get deleted before you load a scene configuration of some kind. And so that's the split that I'm doing, and part of that has to do with this is a game with thousands of objects and a bunch of scenes that have been built in different ways, and it's going to still require a whole bunch of manual work to make sure that this functionality doesn't break certain things. So like right now, even as it exists right here, this will probably work just fine in a sandbox scene and do largely what you would expect it to do. This functionality put into something like rot wieners or put into even Take and Hold probably would just completely break those modes. And so I'm going to, even as this system gets developed and we confirm that the data structure works, and that there aren't weird corner cases, and I work with the modding framework people to make sure that their stuff is getting encoded and decoded properly, the next sort of step for this is making it so that this can function in some of the other scenes that have more complex gameplay in them without just getting completely fragged. So like, I know as soon as I put this together, there's some people who enjoy primarily playing in rot wieners, and they're like, I want to set up, I don't know, a whole bunch of like turrets or something like that, or I want to build a fort on a hill in rot wieners, and I want to save that down. But importantly, I need to make sure that it saves that stuff down and not, you know, every other object that has spawned and is sitting on the ground somewhere in rot wieners, because then when you load the game again and then load that configuration, it would load those objects on top of what else was already spawned in the scene and is necessary for its gameplay and has been linked to its various systems, and that would be a disaster. It would probably actually just crash because it would be trying to spawn hundreds of objects on top of themselves. So this is a process that's going to hit sandbox parts of H3 very fast, other parts of H3 slower, and probably a couple scenes, it probably is just going to remain disabled no matter what, because it just would not be able to handle it. So that's how rollout of this will work. In terms of what else is going to come with this, obviously you've seen there, I've built this new set of targets that are going to go in. I've got a whole bunch more. I'm finally going to do a whole bunch of extensions off of like the lockable platforms. Probably some objects that are just designed for people building little defensive structures, because I know lots of you love doing that, and now you're finally going to be able to, if you just enjoy a scene, build yourself up a quick little cabin, put your little shelves up and things like that, lay out your equipment, and just save that. And hopefully it won't explode. But I would like to essentially, there's been a part of the sandbox gameplay that lots of folks play with, which is the Sosig spawner, and that's all was only ever half finished because it was mainly a debugging tool. That is, once the item spawner is done and the saving system all proves to all be functional, the next thing systemically that I'm probably going to work on is rebuilding / finishing the Sosig spawner, making it a first-class tool, and making it so that it doesn't just spawn Sosigs, but spawns what will be called sort of Sosig nodes. I've shown these off in the past when I was sort of prototyping this concept, but the basic idea is almost imagine them as like a little spawner pad for a type of Sosig. So when you go to just click the trigger and place a Sosig with the spawner, if it's in Sosig node mode, it would just spawn essentially this spawnable object that holds all the data of what Sosig you want. Like, it's a Desperado one, and it has all its weapons, and it's this difficulty and such. And that would be a savable object like anything else, and then you could have a button of some kind, or probably hit a button on the spawner that would make all those Sosigs with those nodes spawn into existence, so you could just refresh those even and fight a fight over and over again without even having to refresh the entire scene configuration. Those nodes could just be like, send another wave at me, send another wave at me, sort of thing. So you will be able to essentially do the same sorts of things you can do in Grill House with those static layouts, except do them with your own stuff. And eventually, even the static layouts that are currently in the Grill House, I will re-implement using this functionality I eventually will build, so you could then go in and modify those things yourself. Or be like, I really like Path 3 and Spawn Point 2, but I wish some of them came in through the window, so I moved some nodes around and things like that. But that's the target, and in many ways the way I built Grill House was to figure out, okay, what's fun, what do people enjoy doing with the Sosigs in that sort of breaching context, and how much information needs to be laid out in the scene to enable that gameplay. And so now that I know that and have tested it and have gotten feedback for several months, I can componentize that. And so that is going to be one of the goals for the rest of the year, is building that functionality now that we have the ability to save that functionality. So but yeah, I'm incredibly pumped. I feel like this is going to open up another chapter for the game, and making this as deeply integrated with the item spawner as possible, and getting that workflow as clean and consistent as possible is really my goal with this, and making sure that it plays as nicely as possible with all the wonderful stuff that the modding community has created. So I'm talking with all of them and running around and making sure, like, how are you changing data? How are you changing data? How is this all getting loaded? Making sure that will all get packaged up and done. And I'm going to be doing a private alpha with a bunch of those people first, just to make sure that this doesn't completely explode before it is, and so that they have time to sort of do little patches to their mods, so that when this rolls out for you folks to play with, if those of you, and I know you're out there, who have like 500 mods installed, so it doesn't explode. So I implore those of you who do play modded to just pay attention to when your mods are getting, the stuff that you rely on is getting updated, and know that when this goes to alpha, which will probably go to alpha for about a week, you will probably have to update all of your mods at that point, or some measure of them, to make sure that they fully work with the save system, just that we can make sure everything's in sync and such. So yeah, so there you have it. That is what has been going on. I have been working my tail off on this. It's fun. Several weeks of just nonstop serialization and UI work is yeah, it's a little rough, but it's worth it. And it's funny because I said for this update, I was like, I'm just going to implement some guns and not think hard about things. And that made me relax for a day. And I was like, I suddenly have the energy to do the thing that I have been avoiding doing for like 2 years. So bam, here you go. Here's it working. Obviously you can't play with it yet, but I'm hoping alpha next week, as long as nothing explodes. So I hope you are as excited as I am to see it. And I've got some really goofy targets planned as well that I hope you folks like. And I've got an environment or two in mind that is going to be built to really take advantage of this. So it's fun times ahead. So hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.